the show. Let me start off by saying I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. This information is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only. So this is a redo video about a possible spinoff of MMTLP and what it might be like. The reason I'm redoing it is that there's been better projections for the price of oil next year and the following year by JP Morgan of $120 and $150 per barrel in 2023. So if you're a good manager, you would basically take that into account, factor in a high growth rate based upon a high price of oil, and see what you can do, okay? So just FYI, these calculations are based on a previous calculation that was done by Roller Pigeons. She's got a video that says what happens if there's a spinoff, MMTLP, and basically she goes through this. I just took her calculations and stuck it into a spreadsheet, and it's worth going over what those calculations are and how they work. So I'll just quickly go over them, okay? So we start with the price of oil being $80 per barrel. The cost to get the oil out of the ground is about $25 a barrel. That's called the COGS cost, or the cost of goods sold. That results in a gross revenue of about $55, okay? 80 minus 25 is 55. We know that the metamaterials torchlight oil and gas assets in there, that there are 8 wells. Each of the wells can produce about 1,500 barrels of oil per well per day. That means that there's about 12,000 barrels of oil that can be produced if all 8 wells are running. Run them for 365 days a year. You get about 4.38 million barrels of oil. There's a 49% revenue interest in the Oro Grande Basin, and factor in the 49% revenue interest with the gross revenue of $55, and combined with the 4.38 million barrels of production, you wind up with $118 million per year revenue pre-tax. If you factor in a 29% overall tax rate, and that's 29% comes from a 21% franchise fee, 6.5% mineral extraction fee, and a 1.5%, comes from a 1.5% franchise fee, a 6.5% mineral extraction fee, and a 21% corporate tax. That's how you get to 29%. If you factor in the 29% overall taxes, you're down to a revenue of about $83.8 million. There's depreciation. Roller Pigeon just said, hey, look, let's make depreciation be about $3.8 million. And that gets us down to a nice $80 million figure. And then you can take that $80 million, divide it across 165 million shares. You end up with about 49 cents per share, okay, as your possible dividend. And that's our calculation. It makes sense, it's logical, can't find anything wrong with it. I did decide to make a couple adjustments to it. I said instead of depreciation being 3.8 million, let's make it be 2.5 million for now. And let's throw in a general and administrative fees. General and administrative, or G&A, is usually, cost to hire people, get some security guards in there so no one steals the oil or vandalizes it in any way. Hire the people to actually pump the oil up out of the ground, that kind of stuff. So I figure about, $4 million just for the G&A, okay? Across these, across these 8 wells or so, okay? That brings you down to about $77.3 million as opposed to $80 million. And that brings your possible dividend down to about 47 cents a share. Then I asked the question, well, suppose instead of getting the 47 cents a share, which isn't very much, suppose you reinvest that into oil fields. What happens then? Because that's, that seems logical, right? It seems like what a good manager might want to do. $77 million is nothing to sneeze at. So let's take 90% of that money and reinvest it into oil wells, okay? That means 90% of 77 million is $69.578 million. At a cost of about $4.6 million per well, you're adding about 15 wells, which brings you in total to about 23 wells at the end of year 1. And then I put the entire thing into a column because then we can extrapolate from year 1 to 2 to 3, etc., right? And that's where we were. But then we came in with a new piece of information. JP Morgan comes along and says in 2022 they're expecting $125 per barrel oil. And in 2023 they're expecting $150 per barrel oil. Now earlier, Bank of America mentioned that they were expecting at least $120 per barrel oil in 2022. So JP Morgan's assessment coincides with Bank of America's. So now they're saying, hey, we might be having some high oil prices in the near-term future. So if we're going to have high oil prices, let's see if we can take advantage of that, okay? So what I did is I said, okay, let's first put in the $120 per barrel for oil and see what that works out to. So you just put the $120 per barrel at the top of the spreadsheet, watch everything ripple through, and that means that after depreciation and general and administrative costs, you're down to $138 million. If you were to reinvest 90% of that to buy oil wells, you've got $124 million you can use to buy oil wells, which means that you can buy 27 wells. At the end of year 1, you can have 35 oil wells. Not bad. So at $120 per barrel, you want to reinvest as much of that revenue as possible into getting as many oil wells going as possible. Okay. So that's year 1. What does year 2 look like? $150 per barrel. Okay. At the end of year 2, you've got $809 million after depreciation and G&A, and you can add an additional 158 wells, which will bring you up to 193 wells. You've got almost 200 wells at the end of year 2. Okay, that means that by year 3, you don't really need to add that much more oil wells, right? Let's just say that you're going to reinvest only 2% to bring it up to about a little over 200 oil wells. That means you've now got $1.893 billion that you can distribute, most of it, or 98% of that, across your shareholders in year 3. And by year 4, you don't need to reinvest anything back into making more oil wells. Okay. So you've got 201 wells at the end of that. Not bad, right? You're pumping a lot of oil at this point. You're pumping something in the range of 110 million barrels of oil of production per year by year 4, and you're over 100 million barrels of oil per year at year 3. So what does that work out to in terms of actual dividends and share prices? Let's make some room in the spreadsheet and we'll find out. Okay. We've got at the end of year 1, we've got $13.8 million left for dividends. By the end of year 4, we've got $1.971 billion. Okay. So it doesn't just magically get there overnight. At the end of year 2, we got about $80 million. And by year 3, because we're not reinvesting much into, because we don't have to add any more oil wells, all the money can go back into actual, or most of the money can go into paying dividends. And by year 4, basically all that's left over can go off to paying dividends. There's 165 million shares. That means you get about 9 cents per share in dividend year 1. Year 2, you get about 49 cents per share per dividend in year 2. By year 3, you got $11.25 per share in dividends. And by year 4, you're at $11.95 or 96 cents. Okay. Now, most people, when they think of dividends, they actually think of a dividend yield. So a dividend yield of 5% is considered average or normal around the oil industry or so. So the dividend yield implies what a share price would be, right? So a share price, so with with 8.5, 8.4 cents per share dividend and a 5% yield, that implies a share price of about $1.68. At about 50 cents, you're talking about $9.80 implied share price. At $11.25 at a 5% dividend yield, that implies or predicts a share price of $225. Okay. By year 4, you're talking about $11.96 at a 5% yield. That implies a share price of $2.39. $239. Okay, $239 per share. That's a fair amount. So, here are my quick conclusions. You should be able to reinvest the profits back into the company for rapid growth, and that means it should be possible to at least finance 200 wells in about 3 years. Okay, just from pumping oil out of the ground and selling it. Those 200 wells can produce about 110 million barrels of oil, and that 110 million barrels of oil can be worth about $1.972 billion in the Oro Grande Basin, right? And that's at $80 per barrel of WTI, West Texas Intermediate. And it's possible to have dividends of about $11.95 in 4 years. And that $11.95 per share dividend predicts $239 per share. Okay? So, is a spinoff really that bad? Is it? Anyway, that's my take on spinoffs. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. This information is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only. Goodbye.